Hello, I'm Tim Richardson with the Walker Church of Christ, Walker, Louisiana, and I appreciate you tuning in for another Bible video. I am going to cut things a little short today, and perhaps you can tell my voice doesn't sound quite normal, but as many people have experienced in the last year, turned out I found out today that I have the virus too, and that's all right. Now, I'll recover from it. I do appreciate your prayers, but haven't felt up to my best today. But since I will not be able to meet with the Walker congregation in the morning, I did want to be sure that I shared with you some thoughts from the Word of God at this time, and I appreciate you joining me now. Last week in our Sunday morning worship service in Walker, we focused on God's plans and how important it is that we focus not on what we want, but try to understand what He wants and try to make plans humbly, conditionally, realizing that He understands overall situations with us and other people that we relate to a whole lot better than we do. And we have to trust Him to know what He's doing. And in James chapter 4, particularly, one of the key verses that we mentioned last week, I want to just read these and use this as a reminder of the perspective that we need to have. I'm reading from James chapter 4, starting with verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. It's certainly appropriate for us to try to make plans. Whatever business we're involved in, we try to look ahead and set some goals and work toward those. But they always need to be made recognizing that there are factors involved in life that are beyond our control. And the things that we may feel are best to accomplish in our own lives sometimes are not what God feels is best. And as we take to Him our needs, and as we imitate the example of many people that the Scriptures tell about, that we make plans conditionally. We ask God to guide us and give us wisdom. And we have to believe that when we're asking God to help us, that He does. And even if God says no, that's the best answer. God sometimes says yes, but wants us to be patient and wait a while. And so things don't always go exactly the way we think they should. But it's important that we trust Him to help us through things as they are. Whatever circumstances we face, there's no problem so great that it can't be handled with God's help. And our focus always needs to be on doing His will. And so we continue looking here at James chapter 4. It says, yet you do not know what your life will be. You're just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will both live and do this or that. And that's the perspective that it takes me right now to the history of Solomon. Solomon was the son of David, king of Israel. And when Solomon became king in his father's place, God gave him the opportunity to decide what he would like to have. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, Solomon made a very, very wise decision. He received from God the opportunity to make a request, to say, this is what I would really like to have. This is what would really make me happy. And Solomon wrestled with the same kinds of things that people still do today. So what do I really want out of life? I could want to be rich. I could want to be famous. I could want to be powerful. I could want to just have fun. All kinds of things that people say, if I could just have this or do that, that I would feel like my life has turned out well. But in 1 Kings chapter 3, we have Solomon recognizing that he's got a nation to lead. And he very humbly recognizes that that's a great responsibility. We read in 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, in verse 5, in Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. And God said, ask what you wish me to give you. And Solomon said, you have shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father, according as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you, and you have reserved for him this great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, Lord, my God, You have made your servant king in place of my father David. I'm but a little child. I don't know how to go out and come in. And your servant is in the midst of this your people, which you've chosen, a great people who cannot be numbered and counted for multitude. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? And it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. What God wound up telling Solomon is that because you have made a good choice, because you have not asked for great riches or other things that you could have requested, just to make yourself comfortable, make things easy on you, he said, I want to give you the things that you have not asked for. God said to him, because you have asked this thing and have not asked for yourself long life, nor have you asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but you have asked for yourself discernment to understand justice. Behold, I've done according to your words. Behold, I've given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has never been one like you before, nor shall one like you arise after you. And I have given you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will not be anyone among the kings like you all your days. Now there's something that Solomon needs to remember here. And sadly, we know historically that Solomon didn't live up completely to this. It says, if you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments as your father David walked in, then I will prolong your days. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we have Solomon's writings looking at life, and he's looking at life from a human perspective. He's asking himself, if I really want my life to be fulfilling, if I want to enjoy the results of everything that I do, what should I do? And he thinks about the kind of things that people usually reach for. People reach for money and pleasure and property and power. And Solomon was in a unique position that he could say, been there, done that, and I didn't find any satisfaction there. All of the things that people reach for to say, I'd be happy only if I could just have this or do this. And Solomon, based on his own experience, says, you're mistaken. Those things do not provide satisfaction. And there's some important lessons for us to learn in all of this. As Solomon is saying, I'm trying to give you some advice based on what I've been through, and I hope that you can listen to this and let it shape your perspective. Let it help you make some wise decisions for your life. And so in the book of Ecclesiastes, we have the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes sounds pessimistic, but it really isn't. It's important that we consider the whole of the book. That what Solomon is saying, that based on human experience, what people reach for as a goal in their life, the things that people think will make them happy, think that they will feel successful and satisfied if they can do this or have that. And Solomon is issuing a great word of warning to each of us, saying, don't waste your life focusing on those things that are not going to last. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can enjoy. It's like we're taught in the New Testament in 1 Timothy chapter 6. As the Apostle Paul says there, charge those who are rich in this present world, that they be not high-minded, nor have their hope set on the uncertainty of riches, but on God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. It's not being taught there that it's wrong to have anything. It's not wrong for us to be comfortable, but that's not guaranteed. What is important for us is to, like Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, after saying there that people don't need to worry about what they're going to eat or what they're going to wear, because God knows we need those things. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and these things will be added unto you. Jesus is emphasizing a perspective on life that is focusing on our relationship with God. I believe he's saying there that if your priorities are walking with God and maintaining your relationship with him and doing those things that are pleasing in his sight, the other things will fall into place. They'll take care of themselves. But just remember that the things of this life are temporary. Don't let your heart get all wrapped up in those, because they're not going to last. The same chapter in Matthew chapter 6, that Jesus indicates there that if you lay up treasures on earth, moth and rust and thieves are what you've got to deal with. There are all kinds of things that can mess things up. They wear out, tear up, or somebody come along and take them away from you. And if that's what you're living for, then there's no security there. But seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that last. And Solomon's experience bears that out. I'm just going to touch a few highlights here in the book of Ecclesiastes. That when Solomon is saying here, what advantage does man have in all his work, what he does under the sun? A generation goes and comes, but the earth remains forever. Of course, that's not quite true, but there have been many centuries and generations have come and gone, and individuals have lived for a while, but then whatever they've tried to accomplish is passed on to somebody else. And the normal course of history is that even rulers are replaced by other rulers, and so many things in life that are a repetition of what has been done before. And so it says here that all things are wearisome, man's not able to tell it. Eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. That which has been, it's that which shall be. That which has been done is that which will be done. So there's nothing new under the sun. Now, we realize that there's technologies that make themselves known in ways that previous generations were not able to experience. But as far as basic values and perspectives and the things that we like to have, all of us like to be comfortable. All of us like to have a nice home and suitable transportation and enough money to pay our bills, and we'd like to have enough money left over to be able to do some things that we enjoy. And these are things that have been typical of the human experience for many, many centuries. But Solomon says these things are vanity, because when you look at the things of this life, you may have a successful business, you may have a nice home, you may have a comfortable automobile and enough money to pay your bills and all of these things, but there's no security there. The only security that we have is in our relationship with God. And so in Ecclesiastes, Solomon focuses on his own experience when he says here, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure. So enjoy yourself. Now, there might be a lot of people who want to do that, but don't have the same resources that Solomon had. But Solomon honestly was in a position where he could say, no, anything I want to do, I've got the resources to do it. And so this too was futility. I said of laughter, it's madness, and of pleasure, what does it accomplish? I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine, and my mind was guiding me wisely, and how to take hold of folly, until I could see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven the few years of their life. He's experimenting, was in a position to be able to try anything that he thought of. He'd say, well, what's life really for? And I enlarged my works. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself. I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself from which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves. I had homeborn slaves. Also, I possessed flocks and herds larger than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. Also, I collected for myself silver and gold, the treasures of kings and provinces. I provided for myself male and female singers, and the pleasures of men, many concubines. And then I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. And all my eyes have desired, I did not refuse them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. And then I considered all my activities, which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. Now, we could read farther, but I'm not going to this time. Solomon is saying that you really need to try to dig to the very foundations of your life and ask yourself, what are you really living for? What is it that really makes life worthwhile? And we go farther in the book, and I'm skipping through most of it. Solomon has suggested that what life is really all about is trying to find some good in what you work for. Take some satisfaction in your labor. But also in chapter 11, he points out there that a young man, a person who's trying to decide what direction to follow in his life, Solomon says to such a one, no, you've got the whole world ahead of you. Oh, grab a hold of life. Have a good time. But he says that with a word of caution. He doesn't really mean it like it sounds. He's not really saying there that, it's okay just to do anything you feel like doing, because it's going to catch up with you. In Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 9, rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasing during the days of young manhood. Follow the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes. Yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things. So remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. I'm not going to read the following verses here, but what Solomon is saying here, that right now you've got life in front of you, you can grab a hold of it, and there are a lot of things that you can do and a lot of things that you can enjoy, but you need to remember one thing. Whatever choices you make, you'll have to live with the consequences. The Apostle Paul in Galatians chapter 6, it says, whatever a person sows, that he will also reap. Now, don't kid yourself. God is not mocked. God knows that we're going to make decisions, and he wants us to understand that we have to accept the consequences of those decisions. And what Solomon is saying here then is that there are a lot of things that you can do, but you need to make sure that you're making decisions that you won't regret. Make decisions that you can live with. And he describes in a symbolic way the fact that a person, his teeth may be fewer than they used to be. He doesn't see as well as he could. He's nervous in high places. And his hearing is not what it used to be. And all kinds of things that he describes here in chapter 12 that have to do with the effects and limitations of age. And I'm almost 70 years old. I know I'm not as old as some people, but I'm older than a lot of people. And I've got aches and pains that I didn't used to have. I'm very thankful to be alive. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to be here. One of the limitations I just found out about today is that I tested positive for this virus that a lot of people are affected by too. And it's just a reminder to us that our physical health is not a guarantee. The only thing that is lasting and permanent is what Solomon really points out in this last chapter. As he's focused on so many things that people have as goals in their lives, things that they want to accomplish, things that let them think, if I could just have or do this, that I'll be a success. But Solomon wraps it all up. He says that there's only one thing that really, really matters. He says, the words of the wise man are like goads, and masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They're given by one shepherd. But beyond this, my son, be warned. The writing of many books is endless. Excessive devotion to books is wearying to the body. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it's good or evil. We don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't know how many opportunities we're going to have. We don't know whether we're going to have many more years or whether our days will be ending today. And just as Solomon is urging in Ecclesiastes 11, it's important for us to consider our daily choices, the values that we reflect, the things that we're trying to accomplish, and understand that the things that matter most are those things that are expressions of faith, things that reflect an honest desire to honor God, to let his will be the deciding factor in what we do or don't do, because we are going to stand before God someday and give account for the choices that we've made. The Apostle Paul points that out too in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where he says that we have as our ambition to do those things that are well-pleasing in his sight, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ to give account for the things done in the body, whether they be good or evil. We're starting a new year. We've been in this position before. We don't know what the future holds. The important thing is that we thank God for this day, and we make a commitment to ourselves and to him that we're going to try to use every day in a way that serves his purposes. We're going to trust him, pray to him, ask him for guidance and wisdom. We're going to listen to what he's had to say through the scriptures, his word, and we're going to do our very best to be the kind of people that he wants us to be. And when we're trying to make daily decisions in accordance with his will, it doesn't matter how long we're here. What matters is how we live, because God has good things, better things, waiting for those who trust him and walk with him. I hope that you will continue to study the scriptures as you read the kind of things that are pleasing or not pleasing to God. I hope you'll trust him enough that you'll want to do things his way. May God bless you, and Happy New Year.